It's hotter than a firecracker out here. Hey everyone, it's Rob the Backyard Gardener, and it is over 100 degrees for the second or third straight day. We haven't really had a day under 95 in almost a few weeks now, so it's officially hot here in Texas, and the heat means plant production is pretty much shut down. They'll still flower, but they won't set flowers typically. So right now it's all about keeping them fed with water and providing shade where possible, harvesting the tomatoes and the peppers and things that are on the plants while they're still capable of ripening without putting a lot of stress on the plants. Typically, you will still get some fruit sets on tomatoes and peppers right now, but a lot of the other plants in the garden will definitely struggle with doing so. But at the end of the day, the nights aren't getting much lower than 80, 85. And as you know, in order to set fruits on flowers, you gotta be around that 70 to 75 mark. So we're probably not gonna completely shut down the garden, but we're going to trim the plants back a little bit so they don't have to support so much green foliage, and try to encourage them to recover a little bit. And then maybe in about 30 days, we'll get a little better production again. So the heat has wreaked havoc on a lot of my Brandywine tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes and things like that. The grape tomatoes are pretty resilient, but these larger leaf, these potato leaf tomatoes that you see here, but these plants really struggle in the heat, and it's like, why wouldn't they? It's been 100 degrees, and we got a lot of rain yesterday, which is good. But in this video, guys, I'm going to show you, if you're going to trim down your tomatoes so that they're not supporting so much foliage, you should go ahead and save the suckers, and you can regrow them into more tomato plants. Real easy to do as well. Let me go ahead and take you in for a closer look and show you what I'm cutting off. So here's a tomato stem right here, and right between the stem and the leaf at a 45-degree angle is what's called a sucker. Now these suckers are packed full of nutrients, and even the suckers get suckers, even the little one right there. And so rather than just letting this plant be unproductive outside right now, I'm going to cut off this sucker here, and we're going to take this branch right here and we're going to turn it into more tomato plants. And I'm going to do the same thing for all these suckers. You can see we've got another one right here, really good one right here in the middle, and it's got some flowering buds on it. And you know, sometimes it's hard to not let it go to flower, but it's not going to produce, it's too hot. Same thing up here. I've got some more suckers that I'll want to take off, but again, with this Texas heat, they're not going to flower anyway, so we're going to be trimming those off. We've got some of the plant kind of going crazy and hanging off over here, so we got a few more suckers there. We've got suckers way over here in this tree, so we're probably going to get 20 suckers or so off this. I won't keep them all. I'll trim them down to about 8 to 12 inch lengths, and we'll choose the best 6 to 8, and I'll show you where we're at. All right, guys, once you have your trimmed off suckers, there's a few things you want to do here. This is probably overkill, but this is the trimming that I did, and I told you I was going to pick some of the best ones. So there's a few things you have to do on suckers to make sure that they have the best chance at surviving. Number one, get rid of any flowering blossoms whatsoever. You're not going to produce fruit. No matter how well you care for this, it's really slim to none chance of producing fruit. And if it does, it's going to be really, really dwarfed by what it should produce. So we'll get rid of that. Next thing you want to do is, you really don't want the plant to be more than a foot tall at the most. And since this one is a little taller than I want, I've got to cut it off a little better. I like to cut them right above a node at a 45-degree angle, like that. The next thing you need to do is trim off everything that's low. All these branches down here need to come off. You don't want anything in the first several inches of the plant. It's looking better, but it looks like we still have a flowering node there. And you also want to get rid of any additional suckers. Let me get rid of this flowering node up here, as you can see right here. We don't want this at all. And we have one sucker right here, which we don't need. Put that guy in water, and within a week, this should sprout roots. Now I'm gonna do several more of these since I love my Brandywine tomatoes, and they're not gonna be productive over the next several months like they could, and this will buy me some time. Had quite a bit of rain the other day, so we got some rainwater collected. I ran over in my rain barrel. As you can see, it's full, and I've got two of these, one on each side of the house. This is an overfill spout, and I didn't like all the water falling out, so I created a system to put some in the 30-gallon cooler, and it's full. And I still had a lot of water wasted. I'll be putting these out of direct sunlight indoors in my indoor grow room. That way they can not be fried. You know, these suckers also will lose a lot of their moisture content in the leaves, so I probably could remove a few more leaves, but I've done tomatoes so many times, this should be enough. These might die off slowly, but the tomato plants, the tomato stems, these guys put out roots so fast that they really don't dry out that easy. All these little microscopic hairs that you see, or I guess they're not that microscopic because you can't see them without a microscope, but all these little hairs will become roots. So we're gonna do several more, and I'll give you an update of where they're at. All right, so here's the 8 I chose. Now, I wanna explain why I chose the suckers that I did choose and chose to toss the rest of these away. First thing I did is any sucker that I pruned off that had any signs of early blight or disease, there's no reason to pull the sucker off. It's probably got it as well, so I didn't choose those. The second thing is any leaves or any stems that were a little damaged or dried out or just didn't feel very healthy to the touch, I didn't want to choose them. I probably would be trimming leaves forever trying to keep it alive. Didn't want to do that. The next thing I did is anyone that's really just hard to put in a jar or glass or in soil because it's crooked from bending towards the sun. That's just too much pruning and too much work for me to try to straighten it out. So you can even see this one was probably on the ground. It was already starting to think about putting out roots. So I didn't choose those. And then finally, I looked for any suckers that had flowering blossoms on them, because that tells me that that sucker will probably continue to produce fruit. So I can just cut those off, and at least I know I've got a pretty healthy plant. So after doing all that, I chose these 8. Now I'm going to put them inside. Obviously they're a little wilted because it does take a little time to do this, and they were out of the water for a while. Typically you'd like to leave all your suckers in a glass of water while you're choosing them, but they'll bounce back in no time. So these are the Brandywines I just showed you outside. These are the heirloom ones that I did I guess 4 or 5 days ago. Basically the same process, but I wanted to show you that only after 4 or 5 days, if you look right here, you can see roots growing on the stem. So it doesn't take long for these tomatoes to start growing roots. Those things will grow like crazy over the next week. After a couple of weeks, you guys can put these into pots. And once they're in pots, they take about another 2 to 3 weeks to really acclimate before they start growing again. And like I said, what's great about propagating tomato suckers is you can delay having any problems with these plants for about a month or 5 weeks in the hot season. So once these guys get strong enough to go outside and it's no longer 100 degrees or 95 degrees, I'll be planting them and I'll be burying them really deep. So there you go, everyone. That's how I like to propagate my tomato suckers so that I can get a second late season harvest come 60 to 90 days from now. I hope you liked the video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, thanks for watching.